It is. Here we go. And we are live. What's up, Miss Stephanie?
Hello. Hope you're feeling well.
I'm good. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody. Welcome to Bamboozled, North Carolina. Hope you had a great Christmas. We are back tonight, and on tonight's show, we have a man who we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but I met by divine intervention the same way I met with Stephanie, really. And he's going to have a lot to share with us and how we as North Carolinians have been bamboozled by not only our current administration for North Carolina, but previous administrations. And we just got a whole lot to talk about. So hope you guys work inside the comments and, be interactive with us and listen up. So here we go. I'd like to introduce everybody to a friend of mine, a friend of Stephanie's that we met, who is a remarkable man. Al Pisano was his name. Welcome, Al.
Hi, Kim. Nice to be here on Bamboozled. Good to see you again.
Al. Thank you
Hi,
so much
Stephanie.
for coming on. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome.
Hi,
It's my
everybody.
pleasure.
Everyone's saying hello. Hello.
Hello.
So, Al, do you want to just start with, maybe introducing yourself and, how we kind of came to meet each other?
Sure, I'll do that. Well, my name is Al Pisano. I am currently the state chairman of the Constitution Party of North Carolina, which is a legitimate political party in North Carolina, even though a lot of people still don't know that we're on the ballot since 2018. I've been the state chairman since 2008 when we established this party in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, is where we had our first convention. And I was honored to be chosen state chairman by the people of the Constitution Party. So that's a little bit about me with the Constitution Party. I'll talk a little bit more about the party here in a minute, but a little bit more about myself. I've been married 28 years to one woman. I've only been married once. That's enough, right? So anyways, I've got...
I'm done with that. So, yeah.
What do you say, right? So I've got 3 children. I've got 5 granddaughters that I have, that I'm proud to call them my granddaughters, and for them to call me Grand Sir, as they like to call me. So, but anyways, and that's a little bit about my family life. I'm a retired Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer of nearly 30 years, working the front lines of the thin blue line between civilization and barbarism. And I took that job very seriously, and I took that oath to uphold and defend the Constitution very seriously. And I believe I am still bound by that oath. So, I'm out here on the fight. And so also I ran as the first candidate for governor for the Constitution Party of North Carolina. First time the party was on the ballot, I was the first governor's candidate. So I made history in that regard, and had the pleasure of speaking with you in person after numerous contacts via telephone while on my campaign when I was there in Raleigh, as a result of the unfortunate fiasco that you experienced. So that's pretty much a little bit about me, and that's where I'm going.
So
keeping up the fight.
You kind of cut out on how you and I came to meet each other. And so what I was saying is back in October when we were prepping for the American Patriot Council Freedom Rally here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Al was going to come speak with us and, be a part of that big movement we hope to have had at that time. But as many of you know, the processing for the permits did not go as expected, if you will. And Al and I, we didn't get to have our events. Stephanie and I were kind of bamboozled there at the last minute, literally at the last minute. And so just in kind of, this was just another thing, if I may speak, Al, on your behalf, that fired him up and just showed the corruption and the level of corruption, not only that we need to worry about from a national perspective, but right here at home. So Al, I remember when we had the debates for the governors, and I only saw two people. I saw Roy Cooper and I saw Dan Forrest. And why did not we get to see you?
Bottom line, they wouldn't let me in. WRAL, who was sponsoring it, basically said, well, you didn't poll high enough, in our opinion, to basically earn a spot on the stage. Now, here's the thing well, you know this, but speaking to any of your viewers, there were 4 candidates running for governor of North Carolina in this election, okay? That was a pretty darn big stage if you watched it. There was plenty of room for 2 more candidates on there, me being one of them. So it's not like it was going to be some big deal. But when I asked them, I says, well, where was I included in the polls? And they were like, well, no, not really. So that shows you the games that these people play. All right, this is what happens. So in essence, what they end up having was a big infomercial for Cooper and Forrest, the 2 candidates who the establishment media wanted to be there. Okay, that's it. They just want those 2 big candidates. They don't want the third party candidates or the minor party candidates in there, because they know I would have thrown a monkey wrench into the whole system. Okay, because I would have forced those men to start answering some real questions and not the predetermined debate questions that they were able to prep for with their people time and time again. So they're pat answers. You know, I watched part of the debate and I just got sick of it. It was just a show. There was no real meat there. I mean, it was all fluff. You could tell even when Silent Dan Forrest made his little gesture, which was funny, about imitating Cooper the King with his little face mask dangling off his ear. That was kind of funny, but that didn't come from Dan Forrest. That was all prearranged, rehearsed. You could tell the whole thing was prearranged and rehearsed. But what it did do for them, like I said, it was a 1-hour infomercial for those 2.
Basically.
You had a televised program statewide in front of millions of North Carolinians who tuned in to watch this, prime time on a Wednesday night from, I think it was 7 to 8 or 8 to 9, whatever, but it was prime time. If either one of those campaigns had to pay airtime for that, it would have cost them millions of dollars. But they got that stuff for free. I wasn't afforded that opportunity to bring the views, constitutionally minded views, to the voters of North Carolina. Those 2 were able to put on their dog and pony show. And so the people of North Carolina thought, hey, these are the only 2 candidates that are up there, or legitimate candidates. And that's garbage. The Constitution Party, we've worked very hard to get ballot access. You just don't come in there and run for governor. You got to qualify. Okay, so there's hurdles you got to go through to qualify.
What prompted you to run for governor?
Well, a couple of things, Kim. Number one, the executive committee for the Constitution Party is filled with a bunch of patriots in North Carolina. All of them have run for office, or just about all of them had run in the past for some type of office, okay, public office. So the law that we got on the ballot in North Carolina in 2018, they stated that in order for your party to maintain ballot access, you had to run a qualified governor's candidate under your party's banner. You had to, otherwise you were immediately kicked off as a party off the ballot. So a governor had to be, we had to run a governor's candidate, number one, which I was looking real hard for a governor's candidate, okay, somebody to run for governor. I'm not that type of person. I'm not a person that likes being out front. I get involved because I can't complain if I'm going to sit back. So I do end up involved in things, but my nature is not to be some out front guy campaigning, wanting to talk to the press and everything else. That's just not who I am. So I was looking. Are we still on? Am I good?
You're good.
Hey, you're good.
Kim? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Something came up and said there was a connection problem. Okay. So basically we had to run somebody. Then North Carolina decided to move up its primaries to March. Okay. Which meant anybody that was going to run for any office had to go ahead and file person for the primaries, which means we had to file somebody 19, right? So you had to go down and file. So on December 19, 2019, I went to Raleigh and I filed with Kevin Hayes, who filed for U.S. Senator.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the person that was going to file as your candidate in September of 2019. Okay. So that really limited down our possibilities and potential for people. We had people contact us, say, hey, I'd like to run as your candidate, but they missed the deadline to register. Okay. So that was state law. We had nothing
Ow.
to
He's
do
got a
with
bad
that.
connection.
Yeah,
So
we've
the
got some
state
technical
put
problems here.
all the requirements on the Constitution Party. Am I still on?
You are, but it's a really bad connection.
It was breaking up.
Okay. It's breaking up.
Mhm.
Kim, what I might be able to do is if you go to something else for 5 minutes, I might be able to reset up and try to find another location that has a better signal. Is that okay?
Yeah, that works. We'll just we'll talk about something else. Just
Okay,
let
you
us know.
guys go ahead and let me see about getting on here and changing locations, okay?
Okay, perfect.
So, Stephanie, I have a question for you. Not that you were a North Carolina police officer, but I'm sure that the drinking rules are probably about the same per state as far as drinking and driving and open container and stuff like that. The one thing that I'm super confused on is I really get confused when we get into a position where it looks like one law is superseding another law. So when King Cooper comes in and he says that restaurants can serve alcohol to go in a sealed container, but you've got the sheriff's department and the ABC laws that are here for how that doesn't work. Like, is putting that sealed container in your trunk? I mean, what are the rules with that? That's the most confusing, crazy thing ever.
Well, we all know that they're not putting it in their trunk. Let's be honest.
Like, who would?
Carrie, we're going to get right back with you as soon as Al comes back. We're going to get your question, sweetheart. So it's funny because I was actually a police officer in Ohio, and Governor DeWine was one of the first governors to say, hey, you can get your alcohol to go. Now it's different because we know they're not sealed. It's a plastic lid with a straw hole. It's no different than going through McDonald's and getting one of those little, cups with the plastic lid and the straw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, beer bottles, those are sealed. Those, if you leave a bar, you say, hey, can I get a 6-pack to go? Sure thing. That's different. Now, it's funny because North Carolina actually I'm giving my age here, but there was no open container law. You were allowed to have a driver with a passenger with an open container in North Carolina recently, just a few years ago. And they did away with that. But as far as what the problem is that these governors feel that they can just make things up as they go along. And that's not really the way it's supposed to be. And we all know that. And, what do I do? What do I do? What does a police officer do? You pull someone over and they have their little, because if you see all of them, they're in plastic cups that, years ago, Montana had a dry state like that as well. Yeah. I mean, most states right now have you're not allowed to have a passenger drinking next to you in the vehicle while you're driving, even if the driver is sober. Now, these little to-go cups that everyone's posting pictures of, thinking that it's real funny and cute on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. Who's to say, if I'm a police officer, I pull you over and I see there's a straw popped in there. Am I allowed to ask you what's in that cup and what is that? Are you drinking it? Are you allowed to drink it? While as long as the driver isn't. There's so many things there that puts a police officer in a bad situation. It puts others at risk because darn well, I mean, there's drunk drivers already, on the road. And if people think, well, heck, I'm gonna go get me a couple margaritas, what's the harm? Take me a few sips. I mean, it just snowballs from there.
Well, and then suppose somebody has already been drinking.
Correct.
And they go to a restaurant or a bar and they pick up one of these drinks to go and then they have a wreck. Who's held liable? Is that going to be the restaurant? Is that going to be the governor? Who's that going to be?
That's a very good question. And because this is a made up new rule, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And that's another thing too. Say I'm a police officer, I pull you over for speeding and I give you a speeding ticket and you have that alcohol in your car but it's allowed to be there per the governor. Then you drive down the street, run a red light and kill somebody. Guess who's in trouble? That police officer is, for not checking to see if you were drinking. You have to.
Right.
You got a copy of that ticket in there. Hey, Terry, how are you?
Hey, from Michigan. Welcome to North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So, there's so many things that are going on right now that are purpose. I think he's ready. Is Al ready? Al, are you ready? Thumbs up.
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. You're much better.
Fantastic.
I'm just going to finish my statement real quick. And if I can get back on track where I was.
He's former North Carolina law enforcement. He could probably pipe in on this as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So you were North Carolina law enforcement. Okay. I'm former Ohio law enforcement. And both of these governors have now come into play and said, oh yeah, you can get your margaritas to go. Right. Yeah. Well, and I was just telling Kim and everyone that's listening, not too long ago, North Carolina had it to where you could have your passenger drinking an open beverage in the car while the driver was sober. It wasn't that many years ago. Right. I mean, if you can give me a better idea of how many years, I'm guessing 10, 15 years ago they got rid of that.
I'm not really sure on that, Stephanie. I know one thing is the big question comes up is, you make a stop, the law's the law. The governor goes ahead as a king or dictator says, well, no, they're allowed to do this now. And somebody gets into an accident, and that officer's there on the scene. And stop the person and let them continue on because they're going to be drinking. They're not going to be waiting to get home. Come on. So that's just the way it is. And so who's behind is it? It's going to be that officer, that individual officer. And it's going to be he's going to try to argue qualified immunity and stuff, which they should get because there's an executive order there. But an executive order doesn't have the authority to just simply wipe out existing state law, and especially an order like this that is a never-ending so-called emergency.
Well, it's interesting you use the word dictator and as it pertains to laws because Governor Cuomo up in New York just said the other day because some law enforcement officers aren't putting out the citations and, they're not adhering to the citations of the mandates, I guess, and talking about the law enforcement officers not being able to pick and choose which laws they will follow and which ones they won't. And those that don't is a dictator. So by Cuomo's statement, our governor is the very example of what a dictator would look like.
Oh, absolutely.
He picks and chooses what rules he wants us to follow. And oh my God, and people do it. And that's what I want there to be so much with this podcast that we're doing is just how much bamboozlement is out there.
Oh yeah. No,
And a lot of people are, excuse me, I'm sorry, Al, a lot of people are mixing up, they're not aware that a mandate is not a law. A law has to go through legislation. Normal, everyday people, they don't realize that. They just do as they're told. Ryan says Cuomo is a tyrant. Yeah, don't follow. I don't know how, Ryan, I don't know how real this photo is, but I just saw a photo of Cuomo allegedly at a party over the weekend with numerous people.
It's his birthday.
No masks, no nothing, doing, just having a big old party. And it's always the do as we say, not as we do mentality. Yeah, many current governors are dictators. You are correct. Many current governors, they're warm to the ways of China. We know that. But, I'll tell you, the mandates are not laws. And you see these police officers, me being former law enforcement and Al, you being former law enforcement, we took an oath to uphold and go by the U.S. Constitution as well as our state constitution. But most importantly, of course, the U.S. Constitution. And a lot of these officers, because they were never taught,
right.
Newsom's terrible. They were never taught what the U.S. Constitution was, just even simple things. And that's one thing, people want officers to be retrained. If an officer understands the Constitution, they're more likely to be more successful at their job, So, that's a given. So if someone, they're saying, give more training, me personally, I would recommend let's add in the U.S. Constitution and your state constitution in the police academy. Add on a month.
Yep. And I agree, Steph. And that was one of my campaign issues. And I've been saying it for years, was that it be mandatory. Now in North Carolina, I'm sure it's the same in Ohio. Everybody, they all have pretty much the same thing. We have basic law enforcement training, BLET course.
Yep.
Get certification. And you could probably attest to this also. Now, I went through back in 1990. All right. Now we had constitutional case law.
Right.
But as an officer, and I'm sure it's probably the same when you went through.
Yep.
Where were we ever required to read, understand, be tested on the Constitution of the United States in total, the Bill of Rights, or the Constitution of the state of like in my case, state of North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the same in Ohio. We were never forced to know that.
No,
okay?
sir. No, sir. We were handed a book called the ORC, the Ohio Revised Code. And if you arrested someone for, something else, like say I arrested someone for trespassing. Well, that's one that's easy to remember. But say they did, assault, battery, something else that you wouldn't normally be charging someone for. There, you got your little book. You can look this up in case you don't know it. Now, me personally, I took my job serious, and I went over the ORC. I knew what I was doing. I knew if it was a lawful arrest or not.
Right.
I knew, and the same with the Constitution. I grew up in a different time. So it's I knew I was telling Kim, we had to write the Declaration of Independence by memory. You think people are doing that now? No, They don't want you to know. Illegal immigrants that come over here, and I shouldn't say illegal, legal immigrants that come over here to get their citizenship, right, and they take that test, they know more about America than we do.
Absolutely.
I can promise you, they know more about America than we do. And because in America, we need to dumb everyone down, because people that are dumb are easier to control.
Absolutely.
This whole social experiment that we're all experiencing right now is proof of that. There's people walking around with masks. There's people probably showering with a mask on. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
They're sitting at home with a mask on. It's crazy. Thank you so much, Terry. Immigrants are great patriots. Yes, they are. Let me tell you, I interviewed, and Kim, you remember this? I interviewed a woman. She was a group of women from China. We were downtown outside of the Board of Elections, and her name is Hannah Chang. She's a really, really sweet person. It's Hannah Chang, right? Hannah Chan, excuse me.
Bro, you know, I was like, my memory does not hold that.
Well, you know me, I'll never forget a face. But anyways, she gave a really great interview, and she said, we love President Trump. We love him. We don't want Roy Cooper in. They understand what's happening because
they come from places where they see this is evolving too.
Exactly.
Nobody leaves a capitalist country to go to somewhere there's socialism or communism. They all try to come here. And like, that's what I don't get is why are people trying to mess this entire thing up? But anyway, before we go down that rabbit hole, going back to understanding constitutional law as it pertains to a police officer, just a general normal citizen, that's how I got to where I am, is when all this stuff was going on during the summer. I was like, this can't be right. I mean, where the Constitution has never entered my mind. I'm not a former police officer. I'm a hairdresser. No need for me to know the Constitution, right?
You're a darn good hairdresser. Can I just say that?
You need to know it.
Can I just say that?
In my business, but I am a business owner. I am someone who suffered at this. And I was like, well, wait, where is my protection? And, that's when I started looking at, I don't know how I fell upon it. I really don't. But that's where I came upon the Constitution and learned, that there is rights for me. There is something out there that exists for me, the person who has no idea what the Constitution is about, which I do blame educational for dumbing us down because they want us not to know it. But now when you look at from a political perspective, from a personal perspective, a business, whatever perspective you want to look, you came up with how many violations that Roy Cooper has invoked since March of 2020?
It was right around 20 different violations of our federal constitutional rights, our state constitutional rights, and a bunch of different general statutes, North Carolina general statutes that he flat out violated. So, I wrote that up. And when I start looking into this and talking to people about impeachment, people would just roll their eyes like, what are you talking about? And so I basically sequestered myself into my home for 4 days, and all I did was study. I mean, I might go out onto the porch or something like that, but came back in and I researched everything he was doing, the executive orders, and I put together the articles of impeachment that I then submitted and had reviewed along with the Constitution Party of North Carolina and their executive committee, who looked at it. They put a few words in here or there, a few changes, something that they wanted added into that. Once we were good with that, and I felt good with it, I knew I was on solid ground. I was ahead of the curve on this, and people were just kind of shaking their heads thinking, well, you're just a whack job, whatever, right? And I'm like, no, these are impeachable offenses here. This guy needs to be removed. There are things I'm not going to say were bordering along criminal activity. They were criminal activity on his part. Yes. Okay, so 100%. I said I wrote those up, and through the Constitution Party of North Carolina, we printed up hard copies of those articles of impeachment, and then we drafted a letter to the leadership in the House of Representatives of North Carolina, the leadership of the Senate of North Carolina, a letter to Dan Forrest, and a letter to Roy Cooper, stating that he needs to do the honorable thing and resign. But using that word honorable with this guy is, that's a waste of a word. Yeah. And so we explained to them, and we sent each one of them certified mail, a hard copy of these articles of impeachment. In addition, we sent each one of them an electronic copy of those articles of impeachment, along with the accompanying letter to each one of them. So, and you could read those if you go to the Constitution Party of North Carolina's webpage and you click on the impeachment button down there, that'll all come up and you could read it.
What is that webpage?
What's that webpage, Al, so she can type that up?
It's Constitution Party of North Carolina, or if you want to go to constitutionpartync.com.
Oh, I hope I spelled this right.
CON.
All right.
Yay.
There you go. There
Okay.
you go. So, I mean, if anybody wants to go there and read the articles that, were drafted up and sent, now they have no excuse because we know they all received them, including Dan Forest,
Right.
Silent Dan Forest. And that's, I went through my campaign, I dubbed Roy Cooper King Cooper, and the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forest, I dubbed him Silent Dan Forest because of his complete and utter silence and weak response to Cooper snatching power away from the legislature and elevating himself to a dictator. And the Lieutenant Governor's job in North Carolina is his ultimate primary job is to keep a check and balance on a governor who goes rogue.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
It's funny. Can I just say, it's funny how many people don't know something that simple. Okay.
Right.
They don't know something that simple, and they're out going live on Facebook and giving the false information and saying that Dan Forest was doing things, constantly trying to help people, even though Roy Cooper, wasn't allowing this and wasn't allowing that. And, Dan Forest, yeah, he did do a few things, but let's be honest here. He conceded so quickly that I've had longer blinks. I mean,
yeah.
It was like,
and you haven't heard from him since. I mean, I don't even know that the man's alive.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And the point is,
here's the thing, Al, that I don't understand. In my opinion, as a voter, had Dan Forest brought these articles of impeachment that you drafted, had somebody brought that to my attention prior to the election, that would have been an impactful statement. That would have said to me, the North Carolina citizen, hey, look, I got your back.
Right.
I'm not going to allow this to go on any longer. But he opted out of that.
He opted out. And let me tell you something else, Kim, when we were talking about when you asked, about third parties and stuff. Normally, when we have a situation where we send out a press release, and in North Carolina, it goes through the AP, Associated Press. Now, there's one person who dictates what's going to go through AP, if you believe that or not. Okay, it's one person. And we've usually had good dealings with that person, and that sent out the press release over the AP wire. But when it came to this, impeachment, nothing. They wouldn't put it out, wouldn't return our calls, nothing. It was shut down, okay? Deliberately shut down.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because they didn't want that to get out.
Because
for what other reason? I mean, that is a newsworthy event, right? Another candidate running for governor and another political party writes up articles of impeachment accusing the current governor of not only being a tyrant, but being involved in criminal activity. You would think that the news would be all over that if it was legitimately, if the news was legitimately here to inform the public.
Well,
right?
We all know that journalists aren't what they used to be. They're all bought and paid for, most of them. Your real news is from people you never hear about.
Absolutely. It's like podcasts like this.
And Kim, and Al Pisano,
yeah.
Carrie's got a question really quick, and you can touch on this, Al. What general defense of the C-19 virus does the Constitutional Party promote?
Okay, that's kind of open-ended. I'm just gonna make a presumption, Carrie. If you're listening, you write back and be more detailed of it. We're not defending the C-19 virus. what we're here to do is to say, listen, every executive order or so-called mandate from the governor that violates individual rights, constitutional rights, is null and void. Okay, it's null and void. So it does not have the authority of law. The Constitution Party, and we're going to be dealing with this when they come up with the mandatory vaccines. Now, you can go on to some of my old YouTube stuff for the Constitution when I was running for governor. It's on YouTube. I talk about my stance on mandatory vaccines, and I'm dead set against mandatory vaccines.
As is mandatory anything.
Yeah, as is the Constitution Party itself of North Carolina. It's right in our platform that we're against mandatory vaccinations. Mm-hmm. So, you know, with my thing, what I would have done, if elected, right after I took my oath, I would have gone ahead and I would have rescinded every single one of this current tyrant's executive orders concerning COVID. You know, you never, ever give up your freedom, your liberty for the, you know, for the fallacy that the government's going to give you security and safety. You never do that. Okay. And so let people use their common sense. Those people that were in the categories that, you know, that they were more susceptible to getting sick.
Right.
Let them make their own decisions about their own health.
Right.
It's interesting that you would say that, because what I find is all the people that are, well, maybe not all, but the vast majority of people who want to tell me that I'm a terrible person for not wanting to wear a mask, that I'm going to kill somebody, that are the same people who raise hell when you talk about my body, my choice. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait, what? So is it only my body, my choice if I'm having an abortion? Because, like, I'm a little bit lost here, because it's my body, my choice. And don't tell me that I'm going to possibly kill somebody. When you go in for abortion, you knowingly are going to go in and kill someone.
Absolutely.
So don't try to give me any guilt over that. That is
not a new study just came out, a study of 10 million. Okay. They took 300 asymptomatic people out of those 10 million, and they traced them. Okay. They did a contact trace of those 300 people. And this just came out yesterday or day before. And of course, none of the mainstream media is putting this out there, but you're talking 300 asymptomatic people, no symptoms whatsoever. And they proved that those people did not get not one person sick. So you are masking the healthy. You're quarantining the healthy. Okay. This has been done one other time that I know of, in 1918 and 1920 Spanish flu. And you had the masked being buried by the non-masked. Okay, because the masks were developing secondary bacterial infections from wearing a mask. And here you have the non-maskers burying the people who had the secondary bacterial infection. A lot of them, they would have survived the flu, but they ended up with this infection that antibiotics couldn't take care of. And guess who wrote a paper about that in 2008? Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, he did.
Funny.
Yeah. So, you know, and it's another thing when you're looking at how many people are testing positive now. We know the sham with the tests and how many times it gets cycled. It's so sensitive that if you've ever had, you know, a cold in the past 10 years, it's going to show that you're testing positive for something. And we know that they have ramped the cycles up twice of what it's supposed to be.
Hang on.
So sensitive.
I think Ryan got his. Ryan, did you get your COVID vaccine?
He said he has no idea. He says it's autocorrect.
I know. I'm just teasing.
But, you know, we're looking at how many people are testing positive now that they're wearing masks all the time.
Yes.
Well, look at California.
72%.
Yeah. Now here's the thing.
Los Angeles. Just Los Angeles alone, they are tapping out on their hospital beds, their ICUs, their ventilators, and they've got the strictest lockdowns in the country, and it's still out of control. So tell me again how these lockdowns work.
Well, I mean, they've shown in the past, there were studies showing that the virus only can exist in sunlight for about 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing for you is getting out in the sun and fresh air and exercise.
It's a water-based virus. It's a very
Yeah.
simple virus. It really is. It's very simple. There's nothing too complex about it. The only thing that's changed, which was done in the lab, is where they were able to cause the mushroom effect on the outside of the virus, and that's what causes it to stick to the lining of your bronchioles. I'm a nurse now, by the way.
Okay, good.
Former police officer. So, and you can ask him. I have researched this virus. Because me personally, at first, I think I was a little nervous, like everyone else was, when I saw it over in China, I was like, yeah, vitamin D, definitely vitamin D. You want vitamin D? There's the China virus. It is the China virus. You want zinc. If you're taking zinc, you want to be careful on the milligrams. Everyone's like want to pop zinc like it's candy. Do not do that. You want to take quercetin along with the zinc, because it allows the quercetin forces the zinc into your cells. Okay. And then what did I say? The vitamin D, quercetin, zinc, and vitamin C.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, yeah, so, and it's very, very simple. And I'm not going to get all into the medical portion of COVID. CCPV, Ryan's calling it the CCPV. It is, yes, China did do it, and there's no question about that. My question is, we know that it came out of Wuhan. We know that it didn't come from a bat. We know that it's lab created. It's been brought forth to the table. There's been numerous documentaries put out there about and people that know for a fact, epidemiologists and virologists that know for a fact, 110% that it was developed in a lab, and it's man-made. And these documentaries are getting pulled down just like every time it's up for an hour and it's gone. So if you don't see it and if you don't download it, you're not going to see it. And that's, the censoring is crazy right now. And I mean, it is like, China. I mean, communist China that's what they do.
Right into a good our next topic, Al, talking about the influence of China in North Carolina.
That's where I was. Yes, that's where I was headed. Yep.
So
and a lot of the things, if you look at Smithfield Foods, okay, Smithfield Foods dealing with the pork industry and stuff. It's huge in Eastern North Carolina, especially because of the barbecue and all that stuff. Eastern North Carolina barbecue and it's huge. And there are farmers down there that have been generations of hog farmers and stuff down there, that Smithfield Foods was bought out by a company in China, and then is now basically owns all of those farmers down in Eastern North Carolina. Now that was done not under Roy Cooper as governor, but done when Pat McCrory was governor. Okay, so here's what I'm.
You guys watching? Pat McCrory was a Republican governor.
Yeah, he was a Republican governor before this current king. But a lot of these things were done with both parties in charge. Okay, and what I was trying to tell people that are saying, well, you got to vote for this Republican or that, why? You're getting the same thing. Okay.
Yep.
And if you want to continue down that path, okay, maybe in certain areas it's going to be a few years delayed, but you're still going to go right off the same cliff with going with either one of these two major parties. They're bought and paid for. There's corruption throughout. There's some other coalition that's going on that I found out about the other day with China and North Carolina. There's some coalition to bring us together under this, some global initiative, whatever that's going on. And I'll have to look at that website further. I was looking at
global initiative called communism.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, let's face it, China it's a communist country. There is no free enterprise there. When they come over to the United States under the guise of a business, it's no business, not the business that we understand business to be, capitalism, free enterprise. It's the Chinese government that owns those businesses.
Yep.
That's coming over, buying property and stuff in the United States, and doing business in the United States. And you wonder why Hollywood is such a destructive place. China has a lot of investments in Hollywood, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking at the food industries here and stuff like that. And there's been a whole lot of mixing with both the Democrats and Republicans. And that's why, people come to me and say, man, would love for you to join with the Republican Party
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And I'm like, no, it's a rotten corpse. Okay.
Yep.
It's got some spots of decency in it,
yeah.
But for the most part, it is so diseased that you're never going to revive it. People have been telling me that, and I've been watching this, waiting for this to happen for 25 years, right? And it's not going to happen, folks. I hate to burst your bubble.
I never in a million years thought that I would say the GOP is dead, and it is, and it's dying fast.
Right.
And a lot of what's happening, and I hate to say it, but if it had Donald Trump not won this election, what would we have found out? He's trying to get. That's a question I do have for you. How do you feel right now that so many Trump supporters are moving away from the Republican Party and wanting to go more Constitution Party or Patriot Party or something other than Republican or Democrat? How do you feel about that?
I think it's great that they're starting to expand where they're going, but the danger is if Steph and Kim, if they don't start reading this,
yep,
and knowing it and understanding what that's about, they're going to be co-opted. The Republican agents, these people they live their life, this is their religion, basically. Their whole life is their political party. Whether Republicans, you got Democrats too like that, right? But it seems to me that they're masters at co-opting groups that want to splinter away from the Republican Party. We saw that with the Tea Party. All right. Tea Party started out big. What happened? Republican operatives go in, they take over leadership. Yep. They start, like with the Constitution Party, when it first started, they were wanting me to come and speak at their events. Mm-hmm. Shortly thereafter, I started getting disinvited.
Yes.
They didn't want to have nothing to do with me because I was a constitutionalist and not a Republican.
Correct.
So that's the danger of people starting another movement, of them being co-opted by GOP operatives to try to bring them back into the fold.
Okay. Right. And say, oh, we've changed. This is a whole new thing. Carrie just said it's the ultra conservatives that seem to be dead. The GOP is still alive in the Trump era. And Carrie, I'll agree partially with that. There are still some good people that are in the GOP. You have Senator Cruz and, people like that who are going.
Madison.
Huh?
Our boy Madison.
There's people that are in the GOP right now that are going along with the Constitution. But now, you have the rhinos who are basically going along with what they're being told or what they're being paid to do. And I don't mean being paid by us taxpayers, and every single one of these people forgets that they work for us. They don't see it that way anymore. They don't work for us. And they feel that they're there to tell us what we can and can't do. And rather than being, they're not leaders. Let's put that out there too. They're not leaders. Trump is amazing. Yeah, Trump is doing great things, Carrie. 100%. I'm a very big Trump supporter. Thank you, Carrie. Now, you have people that confuse the term leader and representative. Okay, these are not leaders. They don't lead us. They're supposed to represent us. There's a big difference in those two little words. And it's very unfortunate that it's gotten this far.
What's most unfortunate is we allowed the lack of leadership to dissolve from representation.
Not only that, but we became complacent. And they started shoving these awesome iPhones in front of our faces and these iPads to give to our kids and TV, reality TV. And you don't have to go anywhere. You can Skype your grandma instead of going to visit her. You can do everything from home. You can, there's so many things that have taken place technology wise. This is where big tech comes in, technology wise, where they have, hook, line, and sinker. And here we are.
If anybody's interested when it comes to technology, I've been watching this documentary series on Netflix about Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember his manifesto?
Yep.
So when I was younger, when all of that was all the Unabomber stuff was going on, I felt like everybody else, and I still think the guy's a nutcase, right?
But the guy lived in like a shed, like he built stuff in a shed, right? Like it was a little shed cabin. Okay.
But his big problem was with the Industrial Revolution that was happening in our lifetime and technology and stuff like that. So I have found it quite interesting that from a man who had these opinions in 1972 or 1979 or whenever it was, and just how kind of right Ted Kaczynski, a serial killer,
right,
had predicted where we would be inside of this technology game and cogs on a wheel. And that's all we've really become is cogs of the machine instead of doing, thinking for ourselves, using critical thinking skills, discernment, and research, like real research. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where my call to action would be for not only North Carolinians, but for Americans alike. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk about one more thing before we're done. And I guess I know it goes back to Al when we're talking about the Chinese influence, but life is happening back here.
I know. Hey. You can see what's going on behind the screen.
Influence, but let's talk about that Chinese social credit score, the Real ID, right. All of that jazz.
Well, okay. I'm sure a lot of people, depending on what state your viewers are in, have had to get the little gold star on the back of their driver's license for the Real ID. And the Real ID Act, all of a sudden, this act supposedly mysteriously shows up after 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. Let's face it. And Stephanie, you know this about government, even local government. Mm-hmm. They can't decide when to eat lunch that fast, right? So, for them to come up and try to say, well, see, this was a response to 9/11. No, it wasn't. It was all planned way ahead of time. They brought it out after 9/11 using 9/11 as the veil.
You got it.
Start implementing this stuff.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you get a whole new agency called the TSA, right?
The Patriotic Act.
Security Administration, all this stuff, Homeland Security. When in the world did we ever hear of terminology like the Homeland? Okay. Where did that come from, right?
Did we question it? Did we question it? Because we trusted our government, right?
I mean, government. So now, and then all of a sudden they start using the term for heads of these agencies as czars. Okay. So you got the Homeland Security, you got czars over these agencies, you got the Transportation Security Administration. Now, I think a lot of people believe that this agency is just there at the airports, and right now it is. But this agency is not to be just for the airports.
Well, you've got the Port Authority too, like in New York and stuff like that.
Right. But TSA can also go into those ports.
Right.
TSA can go into your train stations, your subway stations, your bus stations. They can get on the interstate and set up toll booths if they need to start checking people as you're traveling. Now, if you think that's not real, I don't know if any of you have ever traveled from southern Texas up I-35. I have, coming out of Laredo, Texas.
Oh.
A few miles outside of Laredo, you're on the interstate. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you are at a checkpoint, just like you're going through the border. And you've got immigration officials, not on the border, Border Patrol and immigration officials inside the United States stopping vehicles.
Doing what they want to.
Yeah, you can't avoid it because it covers the entire interstate, right?
Mhm.
Well, so we know they can do this very quickly by putting up these barricades very
Mhm.
quickly and have TSA agents there. So the TSAs, that's in place. It's already set. They could be shifted to wherever they need to be.
Mhm.
You've got your Real ID Act. Now here's something, Steph, I don't know if you were a police officer when HIPAA came in.
Mhm.
HIPAA laws came in.
Yeah, I started in 2001.
Okay. So now you'll remember this because it concerned me greatly. When HIPAA first came out, the way it was written, hospitals, medics, all these, they're all concerned about liability, right? Everybody's concerned about the liability.
Oh yeah.
So they're reading the law as it's written. And the law saying nobody has a right to know where this person's going. So when I would show up on a traffic accident, or there was a victim that was shot or something, and I needed to find them and go ahead and conduct the investigation, or an accident where somebody went to the hospital, and I got all the information, did their report, go meet them at the hospital, make sure they understood everything, got all the paperwork they needed, where their car was located, all that stuff that you should do. Well, they weren't telling me where they were transporting these people. They weren't saying where they were at. I'd go to the hospital and say, well, can't really tell you if they're here or not, okay, because of HIPAA. So that started to concern me. Well, they put in policies that were coming down, guidelines from the government saying, no, that's not what it means.
Yeah, when they had to amend it.
Yes, the law's still written that way, right? So let's figure out now where we're talking about mandatory vaccines coming down the line. And this isn't conspiracy stuff. This is here. You can look it up for yourself. I'm just putting the pieces together. They're going to be having us, with these mandatory vaccines and this COVID fiasco that's going on. You watch if they're not going to start making us get a travel pass.
Yeah. Oh, it's already, yeah, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you've got that. All this is going to go into your Real ID Act, under your Real ID. It's all going to be centralized. Even your health information.
Can you explain Real ID for those that don't know, and for states that aren't? I don't know if every state is starting the Real ID. If it's, I do know, obviously North Carolina.
Yeah, it's national.
It's national, right?
Yeah.
And it's considered
it's your national identification card.
Yeah.
It's a federal ID, right? And you have to have it it was supposed to be by 2020, right? I don't have mine.
2020. Now it's October of 2021.
Okay, well, good, because I don't have mine, right?
I don't either.
I have a regular driver's license.
Unless you're traveling, because I travel for work under normal circumstances. For now, the way that they're positioning this is it's going to be for travel. So instead of, and I still haven't figured out what's the difference in this Real ID gold star on my driver's license versus my passport. Haven't figured that one out yet because I had to go through a federal agency to get my passport. Not sure what difference the gold star is, but it is meant for travel for now.
I mean, do you have an explanation? Do you have an explanation for that, Al? Do you know?
What it's amounting to, it's an internal travel papers for us. And you've seen the old movies with Nazi Germany or whatever. I need to see your papers, your travel papers, and people had to carry them on them to be able to travel from their town to somewhere else. Well, ultimately, that's what this thing is. But it's because of technology, your health information is going to be able to be on there. So if you didn't take your vaccine,
did you say it really has a little yellow star or a gold star or something?
Yeah,
it's a little gold star.
The yellow thing on my sleeve. I'm going to wear it on my.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly right. Isn't that something they picked that type of a symbol? But basically, when you start putting this together, you didn't get your travel pass because you refused to get a vaccine. All of a sudden, you're stopped by TSA or something, and you get swept away somewhere. Well, under HIPAA, if they go the original HIPAA, how's anybody going to find you if you get swept away for a medical reason and you're not compliant? You get swept away for a medical reason. who
Wow.
finds you. If they go back to the way HIPAA was originally when we first started, which was very concerning to me, because like I said, I couldn't even find my victims. I wasn't even told where they were transported or if they were even in a hospital facility.
Right. And Al, I mean, I can sit here and talk about this for another 2 hours. Honestly, I mean, we didn't even touch base on every single thing we want to talk about. I would love to have you back again as soon as you're able to, because I know we're about running out of time here.
That went fast.
Yeah, that went by really fast. I mean, I appreciate you coming out. You're super knowledgeable. Love to have you on again. Kim, any last minute, last second
Yeah,
words?
let's talk. Let's see, Terry. You know what, Terry? I was ignorant until I met Brian and Jason and got involved with the American Patriot Council as well. So I'm right there with you, sister. So we just got to keep fighting the good fight, standing up for what we know is right, and forcing people to live by the oaths that we elected them to live by, rule by, govern by. And until we do, I don't think it's like we can't expect anything different if we don't do anything different. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I'm thinking, this might be what has pushed us to make that difference. And then the last one, Carrie, big tech, subliminal signaling, and politicking the public for travel pass. If the people will stop leveraging and discern rather than it's a talking point, the effort should be able to push it away. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, and if I can just touch based on what Terry said really quick, where she said she was ignorant until June, you are not alone. There's a lot of Americans that have woke up very recently, and we're still learning. I mean, I know we sound wicked smart, and we are, but no, I'm kidding. But
I don't claim that.
They're still learning. I'm still learning. Al is still learning. This is not something, we're all still learning daily. And the best way to do that though is to, and I always say this to Kim is I tell everyone to treat
this is how I learned.
Treat the Constitution. Here's how I learn. Let me show you guys. Treat the Constitution like it's your Bible. Read one verse just pick a part, okay? And I want to show you this on your phone right here. Okay, on my phone, there's a little app called the Patriot app. I don't know if you can see that. This has every single thing that you need to learn about in the Constitution. It's all right here. Okay, everything. So it's an app. I know Kim has books. I like apps.
I have the app.
You got it. I know, but I'll tell you what. No, don't. Kim will grab a book before she will grab a book before she opens that app. Just let's be honest. Do any of you believe that FEMA camps are being set up? Woo. That's. What
do you think, Al?
Well, we know that there were FEMA camps set up. I had a cousin who worked as an administrator towards a FEMA camp after Katrina. So, FEMA was set up as a design to do these things, set up these things for emergency situations and housing. So, yeah, in that sense, are they being set up waiting for some mass arrests that I've heard about? I don't know. You see different things on the internet that sound credible and they might not be. I've never seen, a FEMA camp, and I have not known of anybody in government that was that had mentioned anything about these camps. That doesn't mean they're not being set up. I'm just saying that my own personal thing, I've not had anything credible that I would say, yes, I know they're being set up at this location. Now, I do know this, that a few years ago, coming down I-77 through Charlotte, saw a whole bunch of Humvees and stuff that was United Nations Humvees. Saw them coming through. So I know that was going on. Where they were going, I have no idea.
I'll just touch on that really quick. Terry, we know that, FEMA is real. Obviously, I mean, they come in and they help during, hurricanes and natural disasters and things like that, and a pandemic. I agree with Al. I cannot give a permanent answer. I really don't know that. There's nothing definitive that I have seen, and I believe nothing of what I hear and half of what I see. So that's me.
But what we can believe in is the Constitution. So we're going to close with this and my call to action. First, Al, thank you so much for joining us. As Stephanie said, we have got some more conversation to have, and so we'd like to have you back maybe next week. We'll talk about that. But in the meantime, guys, get your, I've got the U.S. Constitution for Dummies. I think the For Dummies books are the best things in the world.
I agree.
The Idiot's Guide to the U.S. Constitution. And so it helps you break down. You know why I like books? Because I can highlight. And then
you know what? Okay, I'll be honest with you, because as I'm reading my little app, I have to look things up when I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And then I have to go and, get a thesaurus, look up a word or what, I'm like, wait a minute. Our forefathers were extremely smart men, way ahead of their time. And I think I might go ahead and get the one for dummies as well.
Look at how thin this is.
Yes.
To readers out there. It's not very big.
Yeah, this one's fine. This is my little Constitution book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But in addition to learning the United States Constitution, quite honestly, it wasn't that long ago. I didn't even know North Carolina had its own constitution. So also listen to your state constitutions.
Correct.
So, that's kind of like our goal is to empower people. Mark Twain said that it's not that people don't know enough, it's that they know too much of the wrong thing. So we would encourage you to get your resources together, empower yourself,
knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
If the FEMA camps come up, if all hell breaks loose on January the 6th, if we have nothing else, we have our rights. Okay.
Right.
And the more that we can stand by that.
Who's going to DC? Who's going to DC on the 6th?
You
Anybody
going?
else? I'm going.
What are the Cato letters? Anybody?
The Cato letters. Is that the guy that was friends with OJ?
No, I believe it was
Kidding.
an alias name for one of the founders, I think. Now, don't.
You need to have your own show for Kansas and enlighten us.
Where's Carrie from? Is she from Kansas?
She's a APC leader. Yeah.
She needs to do that.
Absolutely.
All right,
Fantastic.
guys, well, we hope everybody has a good week. Thank you again, Al.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Stay strong, and we are here to make sure that you guys get the 411 so we are no longer bamboozled. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Bye.